Well, good morning. It's good to see you all here today. Glad for your presence. Again, I want to thank everyone who helped yesterday for our VBS and came and supported that effort. It was a good day, wonderful day, and we really appreciate everyone who put time into creating games, classes, and activities to make it a really good day, and everyone who helped with the food, and each and every person who really helped out. We really thank you for helping us out with that effort, and it made everything go very smoothly. And the way we've done it for the last 3 or 4 years now is a good, productive way. It just goes like a clockwork. And anyways, again, I want to thank everyone who had a part in that. It was a wonderful day. This morning, our text comes primarily, well, in part from the book of Exodus. Whenever you take a look at the book of Exodus, or you look at the story of the wilderness wanderings through Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, and Deuteronomy, there's a central figure that we often talk about, we often point to. Of course, that one would be Moses. And then another central figure that we often talk about in this period of time of biblical history is Aaron, Moses' brother, who ended up being the first high priest, who helped, because when Moses claimed that he couldn't speak eloquently, he had his brother Aaron to speak on them as well. But there's another figure, and together they really made a trio. Another figure that may not be pointed to, may not be spoken exactly about all the time. And that figure is the person of Miriam. And Miriam, Moses' sister. And I think sometimes Miriam is someone who is unexplored. And despite her enormous impact on the Israelites during this time, she's present all the way from the beginning of Moses' life. She's there, helps to lead Israel in the first act of their national worship. And then later, when she challenges Moses and challenges God, and that's she's punished for that. Later, she kind of fades quietly into history. And so this morning, I want to explore her rise, her brief rebellion, and then really what happens to be, which I believe is a quiet restoration, and give her a full picture of grace, leadership, and spiritual humility. So let's take a look at Miriam this morning. If you would, turn to Exodus chapter 2. Exodus chapter 2. Where we'll begin. So remember, in the first part of Exodus, Israel is being enslaved by Egypt. As the book of Exodus opens up, there became a Pharaoh eventually who did not know Joseph and did not know his impact. And so before, Joseph had been a central figure who protected the Israelites and gave them merit and gave them a place among the Egyptians. During this new Pharaoh, he felt threatened by the Israelites and these people who lived in their land, and so he enslaved them. And during this time, he made an edict that all the boys 2 and under would be killed, to try to lessen the numbers of the Israelites. And so here we see Moses being born into this context. And so in chapter 1 verse 1 of chapter 2, the man of the house of Levi went and took a wife, a daughter of Levi. A woman conceived and bore a son. And she saw he was a beautiful child, and she hid him 3 months, but he could no longer hide him. She took an ark of bulrushes for him and daubed it with asphalt and pitch, and put the child in it and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. And then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child. Behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." And his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." And so the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And so she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." So in this context, we see Miriam's role. It says in verse 4, his sister stood at the distance to know what would be done to him. Miriam is likely 10 to 12 years old at this point. Her watching, not with just idle curiosity, but more of a protective idea, or more protective vigilance that he had over the child. She wanted to know that her brother was going to be okay. And so when Pharaoh's daughter finds the child, she takes advantage of the situation and says, "Shall I call a wet nurse for you to nurse the child?" And she said, "Oh, well, that would be good. Go do that." And she finds the child's mother. And so through Miriam, and through really God's providence here, Miriam was able to have Moses' mother, who had to abandon her son, was able to nurse him until he was weaned, and then give her to Pharaoh's daughter. But she still was able to care for her child at this point. So here we see God using a little girl's courage to preserve the life that would end up being Israel's deliverance. And you never know when your small, faithful action becomes the turning point for something significant, for something massive, as is in the case with Moses here. And the idea that, our children that we raise and we bring into the world and the youth, they're not only just future disciples, but they're already usable for God. Already, as children, they can bring about God's will. And so it also kind of speaks to us as well that we should be watching in our churches for those who guard others in unseen ways, and those who really will influence in small ways and give them the credit. So then, the next major point where we see Miriam back, of course, when Moses is called to lead his people out of Egypt, out of bondage, he appears before Moses in the burning bush. Moses declares at that point that I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. I don't have the ability to do this. Well, God said, "Yes, you do. But also, I'll help you out. Take your brother Aaron." And during this time of his reunion with his long-lost brother Aaron, he's also reunited with Miriam. And so, after the 10 plagues, after Pharaoh finally says, "Okay, you can go," and they cross the Red Sea, when Pharaoh had the change of heart to send his armies after the Israelites again, they tried to chase them. And when the Israelites were on the other side of the Red Sea, of course, the Red Sea came over and swallowed the army. After this point, after they are finally free of Egyptian bondage, it says in Exodus chapter 15, "Then Moses and the children of Israel sang this song to the Lord." And this is the song of Moses. He says, "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and song. He has become my salvation. He is my God. I will praise him. My father's God. I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he cast into the sea. His chosen captains are drowned in the Red Sea. In the depths you have covered them. They sank to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, has become glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, has dashed the enemy in pieces. In the greatness of your excellence, you have overthrown those who rose against you. And you sent forth your wrath. It consumed them like stubble. And with the blast of your nostrils, the waters were gathered together. The flood stood upright like a heap. In the depths congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide and spoil. My desire shall be satisfied on them, and I will draw my sword. My hand shall destroy them. You blew with your wind, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? You stretched out your hand, the earth swallowed them, and you in your mercy have led forth the people whom you have redeemed. You have guided them in your strength to your holy habitation. The people will hear and be afraid. Sorrow will take hold of the inhabitants of Philistia, and the chiefs of Edom will be dismayed. The mighty men of Moab, trembling, will take hold of them. All the inhabitants of Canaan will melt away. Fear and dread will fall on them by the greatness of your arm, and they will be as still as stone until your people pass over, O Lord, till the people pass over whom you have purchased. And you will bring them and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which you have made, from your own dwelling in the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. And so after the Song of Moses, as they're singing and as they're celebrating, Miriam, in verse 20, she says, Then Miriam the prophetess and the sister of Aaron took the timbrel in her hand. And all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances, and Miriam answered them, Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. This is the first time the word prophetess appears in the Bible. It's interesting that it's used to Miriam. And she leads, after the Song of Moses is sung, she continues on in worship. She leads the women in song using musical instruments and praising God. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. And this song is really just a responsive echo of what they have just sung in the Song of Moses. And it emphasizes victory and divine deliverance and joy. So worship, as they were doing here, is not just a formality, but it's a declaration of God's faithfulness. And all the way back, women have always played a vital part in leading others to faith, and even in male-led covenant systems as we're in today. So the lesson there is to, like her, use your voice, use your gifts to influence and direct the attention to God's victories and not only our own. We can learn also that worship today doesn't have to be benign, doesn't have to be something that we just kind of do, that we just kind of go through the motions at, it's something that I'm supposed to do. It's supposed to be some time that we come together and just like they did, to a declaration of God's faithfulness to us and a promise to try to, in turn, be faithful to Him. And that's what really worship is all about. And Miriam kind of started that whole custom all the way back then. Even before the Levitical priesthood was established, Miriam was there. The next major time where we see something from Miriam happens in the book of Numbers, chapter 12. In chapter 12 and verse 1, it said, Then Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. And so they said, Has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also? And the Lord heard it. And now the man Moses was very humble, more than all men who were on the face of the earth. And suddenly the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, Come out, you three, to the tabernacle of meeting. So the three came out, and the Lord came down in the pillar of cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both went forward. And he said, Hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak to him in a dream, and not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. I will speak with him face to face, even plainly, and not in dark sayings. And he sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? So the anger of the Lord was aroused against them, and he departed. And when the cloud departed from above the tabernacle, suddenly Miriam became leprous, as white as snow. And Aaron turned towards Miriam, and there she was, a leper. So Aaron said to Moses, O my Lord, please do not lay this sin on us, in which we have done foolishly, in which we have sinned. Please do not let her be as one dead, whose flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb. And so Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, Please heal her, O God, I pray. And then the Lord said to Moses, If her father had but split her face, would she not be shamed 7 days? Let her be shut up out of the camp 7 days, and afterward she may be received again. So Miriam was shut out of the camp 7 days, and the people did not journey till Miriam was brought in again. And afterward the people moved from Hazeroth and camped in the wilderness of Paran. So here we see there's a confrontation between Moses and his brother and sister in this instance. And Miriam seems to be the one here even more outspoken than even Aaron in this instance. The Ethiopian here could possibly be Zipporah. It doesn't exactly say whether Moses took a second wife or not. We're quite sure, but it's most likely Zipporah. But in this pretext, now remember, this is after the Levitical priesthood has been established, their covenant has been established, the Ten Commandments been given, and the law has been written. And now you see the seeds of what we see in the first century as well, of a people who are starting to get too big for their britches, a people who are starting to feel that they are special, that they're entitled to feel this way. And so this woman that Moses, he never even married a Jew. He didn't do that. So maybe he's not the only voice of God there could be. Do not we receive any kind of messages from God? And he says, you who receive my will from visions and dreams, the Lord speaks to them directly and says, but to Moses I have spoken to him face to face. God's response. Miriam is then struck with leprosy. And Aaron begs Moses to intercede. And Moses then prays, Oh Lord, I pray, heal her. Please heal her now. Heal my sister. And God does heal her, but requires her still to be punished and still observe the laws just like anyone else who was found leprous, be out of the camp for 7 days. 7 days of seclusion. It was the Levitical quarantine during this time instituted in Leviticus 13. And the entire nation waits for her to return. So here we see that there came to be pride in her. In her spiritual leadership can manifest sometimes as subtle envy. Envied her brother. Miriam had past success being there with Moses, but now for whatever reason, she decided to resent his authority now. And God didn't remove her permanently, but corrected her deeply. Discipline from God is not always given as rejection, to kick out forever, but also used as refinement. And any of our leaders in our churches, especially those who have been privileged to serve for a long time, we still have to stay humble before the Word, before the God. But God doesn't erase Miriam. He just removes her just long enough to sort of reset her heart, humble her so she can come back into the fold. We don't hear much or anything at all out of Miriam after this point. In Numbers chapter 20, in verse 1, it says that the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Zin, and Miriam died there and was buried there. Her death, there doesn't appear to be any song, any speech, or any tribute. She died shortly before the deaths of both Moses and Aaron, and it would be the end of an era. No further rebellion, no disgrace. It seems that we're not pointed to any other outburst from her, so it seems that she was properly chastened and no further rebellion came from her, no more disgrace. She properly remained, it's likely she remained faithful, but just quiet and living out her last years in humility here. And Miriam's story teaches us that not every act of restoration leads to another platform. Sometimes when we've sinned and we've gone away and come back, sometimes the opportunity to jump right back in the same way we were before may not present itself. But sometimes restoration means living out the rest of our life with quiet integrity, still serving, still being there, being present. And grace may not always shout, but it always stays. But it also seems that she was one that was remembered through all time. In Micah chapter 6 and verse 4, it says, "For I have brought you up from the land of Egypt, I redeemed you from the house of bondage, and I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam." God himself acknowledges Miriam as one of the three leaders in the book of Exodus and the people of Israel during this time. And even if her name sort of went to obscurity, God never forgot her. And he measures faithfulness by their covenant, not necessarily by popularity. And sometimes our true significance is also affirmed by heaven and not necessarily seen on earth. There also is, in the New Testament, there's the time where Mary, who intends, also has a song about Jesus, and it reflects almost exactly the song of Miriam. It's a connection between the two of them. And so even in the New Testament, she is seen and she is referenced. But if we can find any application from Miriam's life, so that God uses people powerfully and can use them publicly in his purposes, whether they be man or woman or child. And in Miriam's case, from a child's protector to a prophetic singer, Miriam's presence was indispensable. And so we should be, honoring the faithful voices of God's people. Also, past faithfulness and things that we have done in the past doesn't always guarantee that we're remembering to be humble now. Sometimes we need that reminder. Sometimes we can think highly of ourselves. We can have a haughty attitude. It's really easy to have a holier than thou attitude, to think that I'm better than you or I know more than you and I can do this better than anybody else. It's an easy mindset then. But we got to evaluate ourselves and continually surrender any bitterness or rivalry. We have to give that over to God. We have to release that. Remember that God's grace didn't erase Miriam, but he just paused her for a moment. Her identity remained intact, and her relationship to God endured. Grace is something that is given unconditionally. We may sin over and over and over again in our lives, but the grace of God is given. But we also have to it's covered. We pretend always that it never happened. But it's a new path of trust that we can go in with God after we fall. It's a way to reestablish the covenant that we have with God, to reestablish our relationship with God as his grace is given openly. And even though Miriam didn't lead again, she still belonged. She was still his. And it doesn't matter if we are in the spotlight or not, we can still do service in his kingdom. So I hope that we can take a look at Miriam's story and take heart that Miriam's story ends with grace and not shame. And God remembers those who fall, rise quietly, and walks faithfully to the end. And we, in turn, can put those lessons to use to make sure that we're trying to serve in the best way that we can, trying to be the best Christians that we can. And when we fall, try to check ourselves and try to keep ourselves humble and try to walk in due diligence in his kingdom. I hope this lesson this morning was helpful. I hope it does good. And if there's anyone here who is subject to the Lord's invitation in any way, whether it is to become a Christian or you need the prayers of your brothers and sisters this morning to uplift you and help you in any way that we can, you can make those things known this morning as we stand and as we sing.